So we continue getting reaction to the announcement of that cabinet last night by the president. Agricultural organization TLU has called on the new cabinet ministers to work together to ensure food security in the country. The organization has also welcomed the appointment of DA's John Steenhuisen as Agriculture Minister. TLU General Manager Bennie Van Zyl joins me now to chat some more. Bennie, a good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Okay, so let's start with this. Were you expecting that we'd be seeing the president appointing John Steenhuisen as Agriculture Minister, and do you think this is a step in the right direction?
Good morning, Naledi. For us, that is quite a surprise. We was not sure who it will be. We asked way back when the ministers was not yet appointed. We actually asked the DA to fight for that position because we need a minister that do understand economics. Agricultural is the economic process. It goes about profitability and sustainability. And that is one of the bases of stabilization in our country, food on the table. And therefore, we ask for that. And we are quite happy that it came from the outcome is of such a nature that we have a person that do understand the economics, because we cannot play wrong with the principles of market forces and sustainability. That's crucial for food security in our country. So yeah, we are quite happy.
So is it your view that the previous minister, Didiza, was not understanding of economics, as you say?
No, I'm not saying that, because actually all of the previous ministers was catch up within the ANC ideological approach. And that it brings sometimes some things to the table that is not tested by the economic principles. And that was our concern. So if you work with something such as agriculture, you have to make sure that there's only one test, and that's a market principle test, and that is about profitability. So we have about 68% of our population is urbanized in our country, and therefore we need a commercial agricultural sector that produces food for the markets. That is the baseline of food security. That's the starting point. And for us, that is crucial to make sure that we keep those farmers, and that includes all of the commercial farmers, black, white, men, women, doesn't matter. We need their successful farmers for the benefit of our country. So that's for us crucial to make sure that the policy environment is stable. It's the right policy environment. You cannot play around with ideological approaches that is not tested by the economic principles.
Yeah, okay, so we're going to talk maybe in a moment about the sort of policy direction that you would want to see the agricultural sector then taking on, right? And that, of course, being now Minister John Steenhuisen, who's going to be Agriculture Minister. But if you will, Bennie, if we could take a look at where the agricultural space, I suppose, sits at the moment and what the previous minister has left behind. I mean, some of the numbers coming out of the IDC Agribusiness Index said that between 2019 and 2024, the previous minister was able to create 100,000 jobs, that she was able to see exports expanding by 71%. So some saying these are actually encouraging numbers. Where do you think the shortfall there is, where you say that you need a minister that I suppose doesn't align with ANC policies but focuses more on profitability? So where's that shortfall been?
Yeah, for us, that's the problem, that we talk about the outcome, and for sure the agricultural contribution is that in the first quarter, it was the agricultural sector that stabilized our economy, that we do not go down the drain. So for sure, the agricultural sector make a huge contribution, that's for sure. But it's not as if it's the minister that do it. It's the producers, it's the farmers, it's a whole value chain. So it's a package of role players that do it, and they do it actually within the policy environment that bring a lot of uncertainty to us. It's not only about uncertainty, such things as expropriation without compensation, but also the safety issues. And there's a lot of departments that have a role to play within the agricultural sector. We talk about labor, water, environmental affairs, all of those, and a lot of the rest of them as well. Local government, all of them have an influence on the sustainability of agriculture. So it's a package, and therefore we ask that the minister should work closely together to make sure that we have a sound policy so that people trust to invest in agriculture much more, so that we can create opportunities, especially for new entry farmers as well.
Yeah, as well as part of the, as you keep a close eye on the agricultural sector, what we've seen for years is that the agriculture, land reform and rural development sort of clusters were all in that one department. Now we've seen the splitting of that. So John Steenhuisen, Minister of Agriculture, but now Land Reform and Rural Development moving to a separate space where that is now led by Naledi Moleo of the PAC. And as you can imagine, the PAC being very emphatic about wanting to pursue more and more land reform and expropriation. Is that a concern about how those two departments could possibly impact the sector?
Yeah, for sure. There is a great concern within our ranks. We are a little bit afraid what will be the outcome. How are they going to align from the two departments? Because one is ideological driven and the other one is economic driven. So how do you bring those two things together? So for us, it's a little concern. We have to see how it will be at the end of the day, because the proof of the pudding is in the eating. And at this stage, we even start building a pudding. So we have to see how are the different policy environments from the different political parties are going to align to bring something to the table that is in the future, the approach that will be applicable. So this is a very difficult situation at this stage. We have to wait and see. But all the time, all of us from the private sector have to play a huge role to influence it positive for economic growth. That should be the baseline. Any policy announcement should be tested. What will be the influence be on economic growth? That can address unemployment and all these socio-economic realities that we do have in our country. And agriculture can play a huge role there, but then it should be economic driven. And that's for us crucial. So we will play our role. We are set in the CEO forum. We discuss it with the department, policy issues. We make a contribution there all the time. We will still proceed to do that to make sure that the agricultural sector plays a role. As the biggest asset that this country has is food on the table. And we try to do that all the time to make sure that the people understand the role of the agricultural role players, to make sure that we have food on the table. Because if you take that away, anyone can realize what will be the situation in the country. There will be anarchy.
Yeah, and you talk about food on the table. I think it's difficult to talk about it without speaking about the policy differences between, say, the ANC and certainly the Democratic Alliance, right? The ANC very much still in support of a national minimum wage, and the Democratic Alliance emphatically against one. So what would you want to see happen where that is concerned in the agricultural sector?
We are very strong on the point of market forces driven. So we say that everything should be decisive by means of the market principles. That is, at the end of the day, the best process to take things forward. But what we think is in the education side of this whole process, people in South Africa should learn that you have to accept the responsibility for what it means to be a participant in our economy. You cannot have a demanding culture and think the world owe you anything. The world owe nobody nothing. You have to work for it. And that is another culture that we have to create in South Africa, that you cannot demand, I want a house, I want this, I want that. It doesn't work like that. You have to make a contribution, but then the policy environment should create a space where the entrepreneurs would like to do business in this country, not only agriculture, but all the businesses, because that's the starting point of growing the economy. If you have successful businesses that pay taxes to the government, and if you don't have that, all these are going down the drain.
Okay, well, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for speaking to us. It certainly is an interesting discussion. We're speaking there to Bennie Van Zyl, who is the General Manager of TLU, giving us his reaction to the new Agricultural Minister, who is, of course, the DA leader, John Steenhuisen, who takes over that post after it was, of course, taken by Togoti Diza in the 6th administration. She, of course, now Speaker of the National Assembly. That department split into two, so agriculture now on its own, and then land reform and rural development taken out of that department, a separate space now, that led by Naledi Moleo of the PAC.